Hi guys, it's me, KazzaHD, and welcome to qualifying day in Monaco. Hope you guys are well ahead of what is always one of the most exciting parts of a Formula One season, qualifying in Monaco, and is obviously the best part of a Monaco Grand Prix weekend. It is the only consistently great thing about a Monaco Grand Prix weekend. Of course, the race on a Sunday, really we need craziness and rain and stuff like that really for it to for the race on a Sunday to really be something. But qualifying never disappoints. We've had some amazing qualifying sessions here in the past few years. Obviously last year was one of the best qualifying sessions I think we've seen in quite a few years. We had a very good one back in 2021 where we had Leclerc, Verstappen fighting for pole. 2018, 2019, 2017, 2016. Again, great battles for pole position and great laps we saw, being made for pole position. So let's hope, fingers crossed, we're going to get some of that today. The conditions, by the way, the weather conditions in Monaco, very, very good. Hot and sunny. I think there is a chance of rain, but it is not very high. And yeah, should be a dry weekend in Monaco as the F2 sprint race is currently going on. And I think, they're about a third of the way through. And yeah, the weather is very, very good in Monte Carlo. But as you can see, we've got just under an hour and a half to go until qualifying begins. So what we're going to be doing is our usual build up to the session, going through the data from yesterday, looking at the sector time data, and also going through what my predictions are for, for the session itself. And then we'll go a bit more in-depth later on into the teams and how I think they'll all do individually. Obviously, I'll go through some of your comments as well before we get into qualifying. Quickly, though, before we properly get into things, just want to say quickly, hope you guys are doing well, no matter what time zone you're in, what part of the world you're from. I hope you're all having as best time as possible. And remember, there is a poll running at the top of the live chat where I've asked you guys who will take pole position in Monaco. And the drivers you can vote for in that poll are Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, and Lewis Hamilton. And I'll get onto why Lewis Hamilton is included in that poll in a bit. But let me know from that poll who you think takes pole position in Monaco. Or if you think it's someone other than those four drivers, then post it as a comment in the chat. One last thing as well. If my microphone sounds different today, it's because I have adjusted one of the settings. One of the, I think it's noise gate settings, because I found that my mic was clipping just a bit too much. So I'm hoping I come through a bit clearer than I was before, and hopefully it's not having the opposite effect where there's now too much noise or anything. But just saying that in case you guys think there is, any difference with the mic. But of course, the last time I saw you guys was a week ago for qualifying at Imola, which was a brilliant qualifying session where we saw the top three, Verstappen, Piastri and Norris, separated by less than a tenth of a second. But the race on the Sunday ended up being very boring, and I know there was a few people disappointed that I decided not to do a stream for that race, but I think I was proven right in what I said towards the end of that stream last Saturday, that I didn't think anything really was going to happen, and that's exactly what we got, and it was even worse than I expected, to be honest. Except for Lando catching Max for the last few laps, it was arguably the worst race of the season. And it was, it wasn't because Imola is a bad track for racing necessarily. I mean, it is hard to overtake at Imola, but these cars, as we've said a million times, these cars are just terrible for racing. So yeah, it wasn't a surprise to me that we got the race we did. And I was proven correct that, Max Verstappen and Red Bull in the race were too quick for the rest of the field. And it was not going to be as competitive as people thought it was going to be coming out of qualifying. At one point, Max Verstappen had was it a 7-second lead? I think he had at one point in the second half of the race. And I know Lando caught up to Max at the end, and Max was struggling, and people, coming out of the race, I saw plenty of people. Will Buxton was one, saying, "Oh, we've got a season on our hands because if there was X amount of laps, left, then Lando would have won," which goes back to what Max said in Miami in the press conference after that race, where someone asked him what would have happened if this would have happened, and his response was, what was it? If my aunt had bulls, should be my uncle, I think it was. And that pretty much sums up my feeling for what happened in Imola. Yeah, if there was one more lap, 5 more laps, 10 more laps, yeah, maybe Lando would have won the race, but there wasn't one more lap or 5 more laps or 10 more laps. It was a 63-lap race, and Max Verstappen was the quickest and best driver over the 63 laps. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how big the gap is you win by. As long as you win races, it doesn't matter. And Max, at the end of the day, for most of the race, as you could clearly see if you watched the entire race, not just the last 10 laps, Max was comfortable. He was in a comfortable position for, 85% of the race. Just, struggled for the last 10 laps or so. And then it's given people this false impression that Red Bull, might actually, be in trouble when it comes to the championship this year, which I think is way too, not early to say that, but I think people are being very ambitious by thinking that, Max or Red Bull are actually going to be engaged in a championship fight this year. Personally, I don't think that's going to happen. So yeah, Max mostly dominant, I would say, at Imola. And if you exclude those final 10 laps where, Max Verstappen was struggling, I think what we saw at Imola was still Red Bull over a race distance still have the best car. Not by much. It's that, the gap has come down. There is no doubt about that. They were probably only at best a quarter of a second per lap quicker than McLaren, and at times, probably 3-4 tenths a lap quicker than Ferrari, which is still a good amount of time per lap, but it is not as big as it was back, in the first 3 or 4 races of the year, where it was more like half a second at least compared to those two teams. So McLaren and Ferrari have closed the gap. There is no doubt about that. But, and I think I said this to Nib privately after the race, that if you're going to beat Red Bull this season on pure performance, you need to get the job done first in qualifying, because Red Bull still have the best car overall over a race distance. Again, the gap is smaller in terms of the advantage they have, but they still have 2 or 3 tenths of a second in hand. So if you don't get pole position against Red Bull, then you can't then sit there and say, well, we've still got a chance on the Sunday, because you probably haven't. So, yeah. As I said, I think I made the right decision not to stream for Imola, because, it was a boring race, and Max ended up winning again, mostly comfortably, except for those last few laps. I don't think Lando was ever going to pass Max, even if he caught him a bit quicker, because the McLaren just isn't quick in a straight line, as we saw with Piastri when he was trying to pass Carlos Sainz earlier in the Grand Prix. But yeah, that was the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. And let's have a quick look at the championship standings coming out of that Grand Prix. So Max Verstappen is obviously in the lead by how many points now? 48 points clear. He is of Charles Leclerc, who is now up to second place. Brilliant season Leclerc is having. So yeah, Max Verstappen, 48 points clear of Leclerc. Sergio Perez third. Lando Norris up in fourth. Carlos Sainz 5th, Oscar Piastri in 6th, and then George Russell 7th, Lewis Hamilton 8th, Alonso 9th, and Yuki Tsunoda in P10. And yeah, plenty of people have been saying, "Oh, we've got a championship fight on our hands." And I don't think so. I think Max is too far clear, and I think again because of the race pace advantage that Red Bull still have, I still think Red Bull win too many races for there to be a championship fight this season, and Max already has, a good head start on the others. What I think we're going to get this season, not in terms of entertainment, but maybe in terms of competitiveness, is what we saw probably in the year, if anyone remembers, say 2011, where Sebastian Vettel dominated the championship, but there was still quite a few races where it was competitive in terms of the fight for the win. And we had, McLaren win, what was it, 3 or 4 races, may have been more. Ferrari obviously won a race, but there was plenty of races that, we had different teams fighting for the win, but it was just a lot of the time Vettel was the person who ended up winning. And I think that's what we'll see for the rest of the season is it'll be competitive, the fight for, poles and wins here and there, but Max, most of the time, will be the one coming out on top because the Red Bull car and obviously Max, still the best combination out there. So, yeah. And then on the constructors' side, Red Bull are 56 points clear of Ferrari. And given how poor Sergio Perez was at Imola and not looking much better in Monaco, Ferrari, if they do, keep improving, and they definitely improved with that upgrade at Imola, and maybe not as much as we hoped, but there definitely was improvement from Ferrari, and obviously this weekend we're seeing some stunning pace from them. Yeah, Ferrari might be fancying themselves for a shot at the Constructors' Championship, because again, Sergio Perez isn't quite delivering for Red Bull at the moment. McLaren in third, in a clear third place, smack bang in the middle in terms of points between Ferrari and then Mercedes in fourth. Mercedes still not on 100 points, and this is what, the 8th race of the season? Incredible. Aston Martin 5th, 24 points clear of Racing Bulls in 6th. Haas 7th, Alpine 8th, Williams 9th, and Sauber in P10. But now, let's get on to the results of Practice 2 yesterday, which is the most representative session of the weekend so far, where we saw most of the teams doing their absolute best laps so far this weekend. And the pace has been pretty hot. As you can see there, Charles Leclerc, quickest, and has been the quickest man in Practice 2 and Practice 3. Practice 3, of course, finished about an hour ago. If you want an update as to what happened in Practice 3, let me just quickly read out your top 10. It was Leclerc first, and then Verstappen second, Hamilton third, Piastri fourth, Perez fifth, Russell sixth, Sainz 7th, Norris 8th, Tsunoda 9th, Alonso 10th. But again, a lot of the drivers in Practice 3 did not do a lap time as good as what they did in Practice 2, which is why we're looking at the Practice 2 times instead of Practice 3. And Leclerc, with that lap time of a 1 minute 11.2, that is a 10th of a second quicker than last year's pole position. So just shows you how good Ferrari were yesterday and generally how quick the field were yesterday. And pole position today definitely will be in the 1 minute 10s. I'm not sure if it's going to be a mid 1 minute 10, but I'm thinking maybe a 1 minute 10.7, maybe a 1 minute 10.6 is the absolute best you'll see. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see just how quick they go in qualifying. But Leclerc was incredibly quick yesterday, and so far today has been incredibly quick as well. Of course, his home Grand Prix for the Monegasque driver. Lewis Hamilton up in second, and Hamilton in Practice 2, the lap time he did there, he did do quite a bit later than the other drivers like Verstappen, Alonso, drivers like that. So I don't think Mercedes are that quick, but they are definitely quite a bit quicker than they've been at other tracks this season. And Lewis Hamilton is probably one of the drivers to look out for today because he's been on fire all weekend. He was third in practice 3, second in practice 2, and I think was quickest in practice 1. So we'll see how Hamilton does. I think if he can secure a top 3 on the grid, he'd be very, very happy with that, as Hamilton is slowly but surely starting to turn his season around after a poor start to the year. Fernando Alonso in third. Aston Martin look like they've got a bit better pace here, which is not a surprise. I expected that. This track was always going to suit them more than Imola. Max Verstappen fourth. Red Bull were struggling a bit yesterday, especially with the ride of the car over the bumps and the curbs, and still that seems to be a bit of an issue so far today. But they're not going to be half a second away from pole. I don't think they've got the best car for qualifying, but again, half a second away from pole, I think would be a massive surprise. So yeah, we'll see what happens in qualifying, but I think they'll be definitely quite a bit closer than that. Lando Norris in fifth. McLaren, not quick this weekend. I know Piastri was fourth in practice 3, but McLaren have not been able to get near Leclerc in the Ferrari, and Red Bull have looked a bit quicker as well. So McLaren just not quick here. And to be honest, it's not really a surprise because this track is, a lot of it is about mechanical grip. And I don't think that is an area that McLaren are particularly great in. And you have to remember, this track doesn't have a lot of high-speed corners. I mean, there is the high-speed section from the exit of the chicane, the Nouvelle chicane, until the exit of the swimming pool. That's a very high-speed section. But for the rest of the lap, it's medium to slow-speed corners. And McLaren don't do as well in those types of corners. That's why in Imola they were very quick, because Imola is a very high-speed track when it comes to the corners there. So, yeah, I don't think it's really a surprise that McLaren are just not quite on the pace. Carlos Sainz in sixth. He was quite far off, alarmingly off his teammate in practice 2 and practice 3 as well. Lance Stroll up in P7. I think further proving that Aston Martin are a bit better here. Perez in 8th. Alex Albon in P9. Not quite sure how he was able to do that. And then George Russell in 10th. Russell struggling a lot more compared to teammate Hamilton, which is something we saw, I think, at last year's Grand Prix as well, where Lewis Hamilton was doing a lot better than Russell. And then for the rest of the field, you've got Tsunoda 11th, Piastri 12th. I think, though, Tsunoda and Piastri did their best time on the medium compound tyre in practice 2 yesterday. So there was definitely more pace in the bag for those two drivers and teams. Magnussen 13th, Ocon 14th, Hulkenberg 15th, Ricciardo 16th. He also did, I think, his best time on the medium as well. And then Gasly 17th, Sargent 18th, and then the two Saubers 19th and 20th. And Sauber somehow are getting worse, which I didn't think was going to be possible. But yeah, they look incredibly bad this weekend. So, those are the results of practice 2 yesterday. Let's now go on to the sector time data just to understand where certain teams are quick or not so quick. So the first sector is, you've got a couple medium speed corners, but most of it is on throttle. And Ferrari, I don't think it's really a surprise that they're quick in that first sector. The only thing that would be surprising is how far ahead they are of the rest. 0.2 of a second quicker than the next best team, being Mercedes and then Aston Martin, with Red Bull just behind as well. Red Bull definitely have got more pace to show in the in this first sector, no doubt about it. Williams pretty strong in the first sector, but again, that's not really a surprise. McLaren dropping a lot of time in sector 1, almost pretty much 0.4 of a second, and that, if that continues through qualifying, then it's not really a surprise, with McLaren if they end up nowhere near pole position, because if you're giving away that amount of time in just one sector, then you don't have a chance at the end of the day. Alpine looking okay. Haas, not great. Racing Bulls also not great in this sector. And then Sauber, I have no idea what they're playing at, being that far off in just the first sector when it's a Pretty simple first sector compared to most of the track. The middle sector, though, I would say is a combination of high speed and slow speed. And still, impressively, very impressively, Ferrari not just quicker, but clearly quicker compared to the next best car being the Aston Martin of Alonso, a tenth and a half quicker and pretty much a tenth and a half quicker than the Mercedes, 2 tenths better than the McLaren, and a quarter of a second better than the Red Bull. So the Ferrari this weekend, it doesn't matter what part of the track it is, the Ferrari is excelling in every part of the track. Slow speed, high speed, it doesn't matter. So yeah, Ferrari, I think, have got not the perfect package for this weekend, but it's probably the closest they've had to that in a while. I've not seen them this dominant through practice in, it feels like, quite a while. Maybe the last time you could say was the Las Vegas Grand Prix. But I can't remember how quick they were in practice. And of course, practice that weekend was a bit all over the place for reasons we know why. So yeah, what do you call it? It's. I thought Ferrari would be quick here, and I thought Leclerc, of course, would be quick here. But for them to be this quick is quite a surprise. And it is also a great, maybe, omen going forward for the next couple races where if Ferrari are going to, properly launch a bid for the championship, then really these next 2 races, obviously this weekend in Monaco and in 2 weeks' time in Canada, if Ferrari can win these next 2 races, I think Ferrari, you could say at that point, have a decent chance of having a battle for the championship. So we'll see if Ferrari can keep up this impressive speed. Red Bull, of course, definitely have time to improve in this middle sector. You would definitely expect them to be at least a tenth and a half quicker in the middle sector. And then Racing Bulls, pretty good speed. Haas, okay. Alpine, okay. And then Williams and, again, Sauber, alarmingly off the pace in the middle sector. And then the final sector, which is slow speed corners, really. You've got the exit of the swimming pool section, I guess, but mostly I think the important corners are the slow speed corners in the final sector. And again, Ferrari a tenth quicker than the next best car. They were by far the best team in all 3 sectors. Mercedes looking good through that final sector, and I think that's why Mercedes are quick this weekend, is because the issue with their car, it's not mechanical grip, it's the aerodynamic grip. They, in the high-speed corners, Mercedes cannot live with Ferrari, Red Bull, and McLaren. But around a track like Monaco, where you've got, a lot of medium slow-speed corners, Mercedes are able to compete a lot more than they were at Imola, which again is much more of an aero-centric circuit. So that's why Mercedes are a lot more competitive this weekend. And I thought Mercedes would be stronger this weekend, but I will admit I didn't think they would be this good. I thought they'd be maybe a couple positions back, or slower rather, than they've showed so far. And then you got Williams, 4th best in the final sector, showing why Albon was just so quick in practice too yesterday. And then Alonso 5th. Again, if you guys remember back in, as by the way, the F2 sprint race is just a complete fucking joke. Everyone's just crashing into each other all the time. If you remember last year in qualifying, the Aston Martin was very slow in the final sector, but very quick in Sector 1 and Sector 2, and it appears the same thing is happening again, because if only Aston Martin can just be a tenth and a half quicker in the final sector, then I think they've got a pretty good car for this weekend's Monaco Grand Prix. McLaren definitely have got to improve in that final sector. Haas looking okay, Racing Bulls okay, then Alpine and Sauber rounding out the field. But yeah, Ferrari, the kings through all 3 parts of the track, very impressive to see. And coming out of practice 2, and just what I've seen in general so far this weekend, before I get onto my predictions for qualifying, the pecking order is still mostly difficult to say, like, who is where. I'd say Ferrari definitely have the best car for qualifying. I think there's no doubt about that. It would be a surprise if Leclerc is not on pole. Let's hope the Leclerc curse doesn't strike again, because if things go to plan, I don't see how Leclerc is not on pole position for the Monaco Grand Prix. So yeah, Ferrari, I think I've got the best car. Red Bull, I think second. Even though they're having some issues still, I still think they've got at least the second best car. And then after that, it gets tricky between, Mercedes, McLaren, Aston Martin, because I think they are all, pretty close to each other. Third best team, I'd probably go for Mercedes. I think really because they've been consistently the best of the rest, let's say, outside of Ferrari and Red Bull. So yeah, I think I'd go with Mercedes third, and then probably between McLaren and Aston Martin, it's hard to say. I'd probably go Aston Martin in fourth, just ahead of McLaren. But again, if McLaren, proved to be ahead of Aston Martin, I wouldn't be surprised. It's that close. We're talking less than a tenth of a second between the two teams. If anyone out there thinks McLaren are quicker, I wouldn't argue against you, because it is very, very close to call. But yeah, I'd say that's probably the top five. Then after that, I'd probably say Racing Bulls sixth. And then probably after that, Williams, I think maybe seventh, you'd have to say, after what Albon did in practice 2 yesterday. So maybe Williams seventh. And then eighth, probably Haas, and then ninth, Alpine, and 10th, Sauber. Maybe you could say Alpine ahead of Haas. So again, I wouldn't argue against you. Sauber definitely have the slowest car. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, it's pretty hard to predict midfield and, again, the third to fifth best teams, which is how we want it. We don't want to know pretty much what's going to happen, because when you get to that point, then there's little point watching Formula One at the end of the day. But with that, as my, I guess, predicted pecking order, let's get into my predicted top 10 for qualifying today in Monaco. Make sure as well to let me know your predicted top 5, top 10, top 3. Let me know in the live chat. So here is my top 10 for qualifying. I am going Charles Leclerc on pole position by 0.2 of a second ahead of Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. And then Lewis Hamilton third for Mercedes, just ahead of Carlos Sainz, who I think will be a bit quicker in qualifying and be fourth. And then I'm going Alonso fifth, barely ahead of Norris in sixth, with Perez seventh, Piastri eighth, Russell ninth, and Yuki Tsunoda in P10. Again, though, from fifth to ninth, I mean, it could be anything between those positions. It really, really could. So I am prepared to be very wrong when it comes to those positions. But I think for the top three, I mean, that was the same top three as what we had in practice 3. I think that top 3 is pretty likely to be the top 3 in in qualifying. So yeah, we'll see if it does turn out that way. But guys, as I said, let me know in the live chat, who do you think will take pole position? Obviously, make sure to keep voting that poll at the top of the chat to let me know there who you think takes pole position. And yeah, in a moment, or I'll just come back to this page now and go back to these pictures. I'm going to get the timer back on screen in a few seconds' time. There you go. Let me get it now. So we have got exactly 1 hour to go until qualifying begins in Monaco. There is currently a red flag in the F2 sprint race. I don't know if they're going to get the race going again or not, because there is only think 5 laps to go, so I wouldn't be surprised if they called it there. Hopefully that doesn't delay the start of qualifying for us. But what was I going to say? Yeah, for the next hour, I'm just going to read out your comments in the chat. So make sure to get your comments in the chat. If you want to ask me, any F1 related questions, then go for it. Yeah, if you want to ask me about anything in the news regarding F1 at the moment, then again, make sure to post it in the live chat. And again, if you've got any predictions for us, then let me know in the chat. And yeah, for the next hour, I'll answer your comments. And yeah, hopefully, like I said, no delays to qualifying because of this red flag in the F2. Hello to Nib, by the way. Hopefully you're doing well. Right, so, and hello to all of you. Hopefully you're all doing well. And for the amount of people we got watching live, about 100, just want to say as well, make sure to smash a like button. Let's try and get the likes up to say 40 plus likes if we can. That'd be great if we could do that. But as well, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because we will still be covering some sessions, Formula 1 sessions throughout the year, of course. And I will have some recorded videos coming your way very soon, as I am pretty much, finishing up uni. And then once I've done that, then I'll be all concentrated on making some videos along with the streams that I do. But let's go through some comments here. And yeah, hello to everyone. Hopefully you're all well. Maximus says, hope Mercedes can change some light today on the performance. Not sure what that means. I did see yesterday, though, Toto Wolff said that Mercedes may have to compromise some qualifying performance for the race. And I saw a lot of replies to that on X saying, why would you do that? That's so stupid. And they're right. That is stupid. Hopefully Mercedes don't compromise any qualifying pace, because at the end of the day, your car can be as drivable as you want in the race, but if you're a few positions lower than you should be, you're not going to go anywhere with it. So, yeah. Robert says Max gets full power at 1:10.7 for pole. Yeah, I think a 1 minute 10.7, I think, is probably what the pole position time will be. Maybe a 1:10.6, but I think a 1:10.7 is more realistic for pole. As the F2 sprint race is going to be getting back underway in 10 minutes' time. So yeah, if there is any delay to qualifying, I will let you guys know. I don't think there will be. Inferno says they might catch Red Bull like Amelia Lando could have won if he had one more lap. Again, though, if you can go on forever about ifs. The fact of the matter is there wasn't one more lap. And, where, and maybe, it wasn't possible, but where was that pace from the McLaren in the previous 50 laps? I think that's a good question to ask. And I think the answer is pretty clear, that Red Bull were quicker, simply, in those first 50 laps. Nicholas says Charles Leclerc becomes the next Ferrari championship in 2026. Oh yeah, and hope he wins tomorrow. I think it's a bit too early to make predictions like that. Laurie says, so McLaren not so strong around the low-speed corners? No. I mean, they're not bad, but nowhere near as strong as they are in high-speed corners. Same with Red Bull. Red Bull have the same thing. In high-speed corners, the Red Bull car is very good. But in slow-speed corners, it is a bit clumsy, but, still good, but just not quite on the same level as when, when we're at a track like Suzuka, for example. That's a perfect track for the Red Bull car and even the McLaren car, even though they didn't end up on the podium, I think, that particular weekend. But Astro says, for me, teams car wise, it'd be Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren here, and then Mercedes, then Aston Martin. I mean, that's really been the pecking order of the last like 4 or 5 races. But in Monaco, it does tend to be different to a lot of the other races on the calendar because Monaco is such a unique track. And of course, the drivers make a lot more of a difference here at Monaco than they do other tracks, so that does skew things at times. Laurie says, I think Russell might be higher up than what you predicted, but I think you're more or less spot on. Yeah, I think Russell maybe won't be that far down, but yeah, he's not been very competitive since. I mean, practice one, he was, pretty good. But since then, he's not really been on it. Francisco says, I think Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz the top 3, Hamilton 4th. Astro says, I hope Piastri gets pole, but would be very happy with Leclerc, Sainz, Norris, anyone but Max. Ricardo getting it well, I'd be delirious and pinching myself. I think Ricardo, wasn't Ricardo in the top 10 in practice 3, or one of the practice sessions he was. Oh, right. Practice 3 was an 18th. I think he might have had some sort of issue. But I think it was, practice 1, he was 9th, and he was only a couple hundredths of a second slower than his teammate. So the potential is there for Ricardo to be, either just inside the top 10 or, say, in 11th place. Laurie says, to be honest, Lawson should be in the Red Bull car by Spa if Ricardo doesn't get, or not the Red Bull, the RB car, the Racing Bulls car, by Spa if Ricardo doesn't get his act together. Interesting you say that. I saw a news article from, I don't know who it was, I don't know who said it. Let me just try and find it quickly. It was from someone at Racing Bulls saying how Tsunoda is likely to stay at the team and that Ricardo, here you go. So the Racing Bulls CEO said that the team want to extend Tsunoda's contract and that Ricardo is also likely to stay, which I was very surprised with. And also someone in the comments of this tweet did clarify that Liam Lawson has a clause in his contract that leaves him, lets him leave Red Bull in 2025 if they don't offer him a seat. So maybe we'll see Lawson end up somewhere else. But yeah. Laurie says maybe the Sauber car is poor because the drivers aren't offering valuable technical feedback. Then again, the team's running on a limited budget. I mean, are they the two most best people for technical feedback? Bottas and Zhou? No, but I don't think that's the issue. I think fundamentally the car is just poor. It's not like a 2019 Williams, type car, but it's just not a good car. But the issue is, you've got Valtteri Bottas, who is not as good as he was at his peak. This is like, past his prime Valtteri Bottas, who, occasionally still quick here and there, but most of the time, he's just mid. And then you've got Zhou Guanyu, who is not good enough to be in Formula One and almost the entire time at the minute is, terrible and is getting knocked out in Q1, left, right, and centre. So, yeah, driver lineup definitely doesn't help. And, if next season they do have Sainz and Hulkenberg, then even if the car is at the same level, they will perform better because they'll have a better driver lineup. Talking of Carlos Sainz, crazy rumours with him going on about where he will be next season. Looks like the door at Mercedes has been closed. because Mercedes are more keen to develop Antonelli, which is not surprising. I think it's the right decision. Why bother signing Carlos Sainz when you've got an even potentially even better driver waiting in the wings? And even though the offer from Audi is still there, apparently Carlos Sainz is in advanced discussions with Williams. I have no idea how that has come about. I really don't. And I also don't know how Williams can afford Carlos Sainz. I don't think they can, surely. Um yeah, I would be incredibly surprised if Carlos Sainz ends up at Williams. And I think that would be such a bad driver move for him because Williams, I mean, yeah, they're better than they were back a few years ago, but Williams are not going to be a front running team probably, for a very long time. So, yeah, why is he considering Williams when at the end of the day with the Audi move, yeah, it'll suck for a few years because he'll be in the midfield, but Audi have a better chance of becoming a front-running team than Williams do because Audi will have a lot more money, more facilities, and you'd imagine will have more access to better technical personnel. So, yeah, I just don't get why he's even talking to Williams. I don't get it. Astro says, I still think Ricardo has the right stuff. Struggled to show it, sure, and admit I'm biased, but ain't giving up on him yet. Ricardo did get fourth in quali and sprint it wasn't the last race, it was Miami, but yeah. I mean, he has shown, some shades of, Daniel Ricciardo, the Daniel Ricciardo still being there. We also had, the race in Shanghai where if it wasn't for the safety car coming out, I think Ricciardo might have actually got a point in that Grand Prix. And then obviously, Lance Stroll happened. And once again, I am being proven right with the video I did on Lance Stroll. That obviously got a lot of views last year. And if you haven't seen that, guys, if anyone out here watching hasn't seen that, make sure to go into the description and find that video. There's a link to it in the description. But yeah, that video still relevant, let's say. Francisco, massive mistake for Red Bull to keep Perez with Sainz available. If the teams close up to them on pace next year, Red Bull will struggle. In the constructors, yeah, they will. But again, who knows? We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, there are still rumors that Max Verstappen will be leaving Red Bull at the end of this season. We don't know. We honestly don't know what is gonna happen. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if they lose Max Verstappen Red Bull, then it doesn't matter if they keep Sergio Perez because they'll lose the Constructors' Championship anyway if they lose Max Verstappen. Even if they have a very good car next year. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I still don't think Max is gonna at least go to Mercedes, yet, for next year. Maybe 2026. Maybe. There's been rumors that what do you call it? That for the new power unit regulations in 2026, that apparently Mercedes believe that they've got a clear step ahead on the rest of the field like they did in 2014. We'll see if that's true. The thing is, though, with Mercedes, even if that is true, that doesn't mean they're going to have the best car in 2026, because if McLaren, who also will be Mercedes powered in 2026, if McLaren produce a car that aerodynamically is better, then McLaren will have the best car. So it doesn't mean, just because Mercedes will have the best engine does not mean they're going to have the best car, which I think people need to remember. Because at the moment, Mercedes have, the second best Mercedes powered car, and don't look like they're going to close anytime soon on McLaren in terms of, being quicker than them. So we'll see what happens. I think, honestly, for Max, if I was advising Max, I would advise Max to stay at Red Bull until at least the end of 2026. Because at the end of the day, if he goes to a team in 2026, he's taking a massive gamble as to whether that team is going to have the performance to, to be fighting for the championship. When, if he just waits to the end of 2026, then he will know what team to go and sign for if he wants to go and sign for them. And obviously, Red Bull, even though, what's happened with, Adrian Newey's leaving, Christian Horner, that whole situation, and, the feeling within the team becoming a lot worse, it's still Max's team. So, yeah. We'll see what happens, but I don't think it's as simple as Max is just going to join Mercedes next year. Right. Let's find some other comments here. Nicholas says, what do you think maybe Mick Schumacher will join Alpine if Gasly or Ocon leave? Probably not, because I think Alpine will have the opportunity to select drivers who are better than Mick Schumacher. And obviously it depends with Alpine how competitive they are, going forward, and at least by the end of this season, as to whether they keep Gasly and Ocon, and also what drivers they can attract towards, that team. So, yeah, I don't think they'll be going for Mick Schumacher. I don't think that's going to happen, as the F2 sprint race is coming into its last 3 laps. Will F1 saying, no, not a chance Hamilton qualifies that high up, row 3 at best. Maybe, but Mercedes have looked very competitive. They've been, with Lewis Hamilton, they've been in the top 3 all weekend, so it's very possible. Astro says, Sainz might actually be underrated rather than overrated. Only driver outside of Red Bull to win a race last year and has already won a race this season, which Perez, Leclerc, Hamilton, etc. have not done. I think maybe, yeah, in the last year or so, I think you could maybe argue that Carlos Sainz has been underrated. But it's been a bit weird with him at Ferrari, because I think most of his Ferrari career he's done well, considering his talent level compared to the cars he's driven. But what was it? 2022 still, for me, just sticks in my mind as a season where I thought he was, for his standard, I thought he was just nowhere near good enough a lot of the time. But yeah, the last year or so, he's been very good. There's no doubt about that. What other comments have we got here? Francisco says Perez is definitely not as reliable as Sainz. He might be slower than Leclerc, but he can challenge him on the regular basis when chances are there for strong results. He usually claims it. Yeah, Carlos Sainz is better than Sergio Perez. I'm not that's not up for debate, but some teams prefer the continuity of keeping a driver at the team. I mean, look at Haas with Kevin Magnussen. A big reason why Magnussen is still at that team is because of continuity, and obviously the the long term relationship they've had. Um, Yanni says, I said it before and I'll say one last time, Ferrari was stupid replacing Carlos, and Carlos is really being really stupid not signing with Audi. Audi has huge resources. Yeah, Carlos not signing with Audi, I think, is stupid because there isn't a better place for him to go. Um, I think he needs to have more faith in that project because it's the only project that's going to get him to maybe be a world champion in the future, even though I don't think that's possible. It's the only project for him that can get him there. Um, what was I going to say? And then yeah, with Ferrari replacing Carlos, I understand what you mean in terms of it being a stupid decision because Carlos Sainz this season has been very good, and he's been very good. He's been definitely one of the top, I would say, 5 drivers on the grid so far this season, and thoroughly deserves to be top 5 in the championship. Um, but the thing you have to remember is when Ferrari signed Lewis Hamilton, this was, towards the end of last season. And last season, Lewis Hamilton was one of the best drivers on the grid. He was probably one of the top 3 best drivers of last season, when Carlos was more 6th, 7th best, maybe 5th best, you could say. So, and obviously, Lewis Hamilton has a higher ceiling than Carlos Sainz. When we know, when Hamilton delivers, we know he can deliver a lot more than Carlos Sainz can. So you can't blame them for signing Lewis Hamilton because, again, when they signed him, Lewis was still one of the top performers on the grid. Even though he's not been this season, it doesn't mean that Lewis is going to continue being this poor for the rest of this season or for next season. So I get what you mean, but I think it was the right decision. Hello to Crystal Racing, by the way. Good to see you, mate. I haven't seen you here for a couple months. Obviously, I haven't streamed a lot, which is why. Um, Francisco says Audi definitely does not have huge resources at the moment. A lot of fights at the board regarding closing other programs like Dakar and GT Racing. I mean, maybe they don't have as much resources at the moment as as other teams do, but um, they have more than Williams, and they'll always have more than Williams. So if it really is a decision between Audi and Williams, then yeah, it's stupid to sign for Williams. It really is. Um, Crystal Racing saying it appears Aston might have sorted their issues from Miami and Imola. I I don't think so. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think the reason they're quicker here is, one, the track suits them a lot more, and also Fernando Alonso is incredibly quick around this track. I think that's what's doing it for them. I think they've still got some big issues of Aston Martin with that car. Um, Let me see if I can find some other comments here. Crystal Racing says we need to remember Hulkenberg beat Sainz at Renault in 2018. He did indeed, and I still have no idea how he or why he beat Carlos Sainz. I don't get it. I know Hulkenberg at the time was performing pretty well. He was one of the top midfield performers, but I remember when Sainz signed for Renault, he had a couple really good races towards the end of 2017, and I thought 2018 Sainz would be the main man for Renault and would be one of the top midfield performers, but it just didn't happen. And I still to this day, I do not understand why that season he just was so off of it, and then goes for McLaren and automatically becomes one of the top 5-6 drivers on the grid. I still don't understand why that happened. Let me see if I can find any news on Twitter whilst we wait for qualifying. And no, can't see any at the moment. Brabham says, hi guys, no Oscar in your poll, no vote from me. Yeah. I mean, the reason I didn't put Oscar in there is because I saw yesterday that he was P12, and I thought, yeah, he's not sure pole position is quite on, even though he was on the medium compound tyre. And yeah, I just don't think pole position for McLaren really is possible. I mean, I know I've got Lando in that pole, but Lando is more regularly ahead of Oscar in that battle at McLaren. But yeah, the only reason I put Lando in there was because I was struggling to think of anyone else who actually has a chance. But really, I think the battle for pole was between Leclerc and Verstappen, which I said a week ago as well. So it was good that I got that prediction right, that it was between Leclerc and Verstappen. And it should be a very good battle, as we are only half an hour away from it. Crystal Racing says both Sainz and Leclerc can blow hot and cold. Leclerc does well when the car is quick, but Sainz is on top when the car has handling issues. Yeah. With Leclerc, I mean, I still think Leclerc is, one of the top drivers on the grid. I think most reasonable people would agree with that. But the issue with Leclerc is, and the reason Leclerc is not on Max Verstappen's level, quite in terms of, as an overall driver, is because even though when it comes to raw pace, Leclerc is as quick, if not quicker, you could say, than Max, it's consistency. That's the issue. I mean, look at this season. Even though Leclerc is second in the championship and he's 48 points behind Max, there's still been races this season where he could have done better and could have scored a few extra points. I mean, Bahrain, he had a car issue, so I don't think we can really complain about what happened there. But, Melbourne, I mean, that could maybe really should have been his race win if he performed in qualifying. But he didn't. So that was 7 points he missed out on. And then, another 3 points he missed at Suzuka, where he had a bad qualifying. So, even though he's only 48 points behind, he could be 38 points behind, could Leclerc. And that's the difference between Leclerc and Verstappen is Max, 99% of the time, Max, no pun intended, maximizes his race result and his result for a weekend. When with Leclerc, I think most of the time, Leclerc gets the result he should get. But then you'll have the odd race, say one in every 3 or 4 races, where Leclerc, you look back at a weekend and think, Leclerc could have done better. Leclerc should have done more. When with Max, it's probably one in every, 15, 20 races where you think that. That's the difference between Max and Leclerc. And really, that's the difference between Max and the rest of the field at the moment is not speed, but consistency. And I think Imola was a great example of that, where in Q3, Max pulled off 2 pretty much perfect laps to secure pole, even when his car maybe wasn't the best car in that session. And then in the race, even though the Red Bull car was the quickest car overall for the race, he was consistent, delivered the lap times he had to, and kept it all, within the track. And that's why, Max is the best driver in Formula One. Kind of how, back when Lewis Hamilton was the best driver in Formula One, back, say, 2017, 18, 19, 2020 era. Lewis was not necessarily the quickest every race weekend, but he was the most consistent. And that is pretty much what separates the very best drivers is consistency rather than speed. But anyway, I think what I'm going to do now, before I go on to any more of your comments, and make sure to keep them coming, by the way, as we're on 38 likes. Let's try and get up to 50 plus likes if we can by the time qualifying begins. I'm just going to quickly post a link of the stream out one more time before we crack on. As, we're only just over 25 minutes away from qualifying. Come join us here to watch along one of the highlights of an F1 season. Qualifying in Monaco. So, there you go. That's done. Greetings, Chaz. Glad to have you back. Cheers, mate. And, that's another thing. Now we've got, not too long to go to qualify. That's another thing I want to get into. Is, of course, my schedule going forward. So like I said, with uni, I'm just coming up in my last. I know I said last week that I'd be finishing on Wednesday, but unfortunately, for a piece of work that I'm still working on for uni, I've needed to file what is called an extenuating circumstance, where you get an extra week or two. I've been given an extra couple weeks to finish this final piece of work for the course. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on for the next couple of weeks. And then after that, my focus will be to do and finish as many recorded videos as possible between finishing uni and then starting uni in September, because I will be starting a new uni course in September. This year, the last couple of years, I've been doing a foundation degree in media, and in September I'm going to be doing a bachelor honors degree in media. So yeah, between the start of June and mid-September, I'm going to be working on as many recorded videos as possible so that I can, have a few videos for you guys to watch. And then, I'll put them out here and there over the, next few months, hopefully. But in terms of live streams, so as I, said in that video I did a few weeks ago, I'm only going to stream when I know that we're in for, a competitive, exciting, qualifying race. That's why I'm streaming today, because qualifying in Monaco is always exciting. So I knew I was going to be live for Monaco even a few weeks ago. But after this weekend, so just to let you guys know, I will not be doing a race watch along tomorrow because it will be dry in Monaco tomorrow, meaning that the race is going to be shit. And really, when it comes to who wins the Monaco Grand Prix, it is going to be decided today. Let's be honest. Unless something crazy happens tomorrow, it's going to be decided today. So yeah, I won't be streaming tomorrow for the Monaco Grand Prix. But the next Grand Prix on the calendar is in 2 weeks' time in Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix at the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve. I would say at the minute, there's probably a 90% chance I'll be doing a qualifying watch along. And then for the race, it depends on what happens in qualifying. But that's all I can say at the minute is, yeah, no stream tomorrow. And then probably I'll be streaming for qualifying in Canada in a couple weeks. And then at the race, again, we'll have to see what happens in qualifying, how the grid shakes out. So, and then obviously when it comes to the races after that, what do you call it? We'll see. One thing I did want to announce was that back a few months ago, I did buy tickets for the Friday and Saturday of the British Grand Prix weekend for this season, but unfortunately, I won't be going because I can't afford everything else, which is, the hotel accommodation, food, travel, all of that. I can't afford to be parting with that amount of money. I know some of you may say, well, camp, but I'm not a camper. I'm not that type of person who can, set up a tent and camp in the fields. I'm just not that type of person. I prefer hotels. And, I've tried to make it work. But, yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to go to the Friday or Saturday for the British Grand Prix, which I know is a waste of money in terms of, buying the tickets. But, I thought I'd have more money to spend for, for going to that Grand Prix, but I don't. And the amount of money I would end up spending, I can't afford to be parting with, put it that way, because the expense is even just, and I was only going to be going on my own. Just for me going on my own, the expense is still, too much. So yeah, just wanted to put that out there as well. So yeah, that's my content plan and plans in general going forward for the next few months. And like I said, I'm hoping to get recorded, a few recorded videos completed in the next few months, and then I can, upload one at a time, and maybe a few whilst I'm at uni, and then, you guys can watch those. And some of those videos are going to be pretty long, so yeah. But we've got 20 minutes to go until qualifying begins in Monaco. Brother, I'm saying I'll stream doing my best chat impression if you like. Astro says, especially Monaco, sometimes no guarantees, but you never know what can happen. I mean, I know, yeah, it's like it's the famous Murray Walker quote, but back then when he was commentating on Formula One, um, that was true. In Monaco, you didn't know what's going to happen because there'd be so many retirements, and the cars were a lot harder to drive. You just never knew what was going to happen. You didn't know how many cars were going to finish the race. But in this current era of Formula One, yeah, it's just not worth it. Um, Crystal Racing says Silverstone is expensive as hell. Yeah, I mean the hotel that I had pre-booked, which was in Milton Keynes, which is the nearest, I think, city to the track. It's like an hour away on the train, I think. I think just for one night in the hotel, if you were to stay there on Friday night, for example, you were looking at 200 quid, which is, I mean, that's almost the same price, or not almost, but that's nearly the same price as the ticket or the tickets I bought for the event itself, which is mental. And then imagine, I think at one point I did pre-book um like 4 or 5 nights at the hotel because I was thinking maybe I'd go for the Sunday as well, because a couple months ago there were still tickets available for for Sunday as well. But the price of the hotel for I think for 4 nights or 5 nights, it was like 800 quid, which is mental. And then again, that is not including food, which obviously is going to be expensive as fuck. And food in this country at the minute in general is expensive as fuck anywhere you go. What else? Yeah, travel, because I'd be going up on the train and all that, up and back on the train, so you got all of that. It's just not possible. And I haven't got. The thing is, I do have probably the money to spend to go to the Friday and the Saturday the British Grand Prix, but I don't want to be parting with that amount of money, because if I do, then it would make life a bit harder for me than it really should be. So yeah, just not worth it. And I don't care what anyone says. Formula One at the minute is not worth the amount of money you would have to spend to go to a British Grand Prix weekend. It's not worth that amount. It just isn't. When you include, the ticket price for the Grand Prix, which you're looking at, if you go on your own, you're talking what? I mean, the ticket. I bought a general admission ticket for Friday and Saturday, and it came up to about what, £330. I mean, if you include a Sunday ticket, you're looking at probably £500 for a general admission ticket for all 3 days. And then, throw in a hotel. And this is just for one person, by the way. Throw in a hotel. And then, goes up to about, say, 1,200 quid. And then food, another, I don't know, add another 100. And then hotel, not hotel, travel. Just for one person, you're looking at 1,500 quid. That is disgusting. And then again, if you end up bringing another person, it's even obviously a lot worse. But it should not cost 1,500 quid all in all to attend the British Grand Prix weekend. And I know all of those costs are not to do with Silverstone, but the majority of it, well, not the majority of it, but a good amount of that amount of money is due to the high ticket prices at Silverstone, which again, for where Formula One is at right now, it should not be that expensive. It just shouldn't. It should be quite a bit cheaper than that. But hey, as long as they make money, who gives a fuck, right? So, but yeah. Unfortunately, I can't go. Maybe someday I will go. I'm hoping I can go someday. But I'll be honest, I think I'm probably more likely to go to a European race, race in Europe, probably sooner than the British Grand Prix, because a lot of races in Europe are a lot cheaper than races at Silverstone. Um, Crystal Racing says, I swear Coventry and Lincoln are closer to Northampton than Milton Keynes. As Northampton is in East Midlands. I'm not sure exactly. I don't live in the area, but Milton Keynes is one of the closest places to Silverstone. I don't know if it's the closest. It might be Northampton, but yeah. An Aussie accent attempting to do Chaz's voice would be ridiculous. It would. Don't try it. Don't try it at home. Crystal Racing, I wonder how much does a WRC event at Wales cost in comparison. I might attend if Kimi ever did a one-off event. I probably would attend if Kimi did a one-off event and it wasn't too expensive. Yeah. But Yanni says, does 1500 include a t-shirt? No. And that's the thing. F1, if you buy Formula One merchandise at the track, then get ready for your bank account to be absolutely destroyed. Because, I mean, when the last time I went to an actual Grand Prix event was 10 years ago, and I remember we bought a Ferrari hat. It was a Fernando Alonso Ferrari hat. It was, one of those Santander ones, and it cost like, what was it, like 70 quid, I think it was. And even then, that was like, wow, that is fucking disgustingly, expensive. So God knows what it's like now. Probably double that. 1500 for Ferrari cap. Maybe it does cost 1500 quid for a Ferrari cap, but yeah. Put it this way, if you are, in terms of your economic status, if you're like working class, which is what I am, and you want to go to an F1 race, do not go to the British Grand Prix because it is not worth it. Go to what's it, Zandvoort is, it's not too far away. If you were to catch a ferry from, was it Norfolk or Hull or somewhere like that in the UK, that probably overall would cost less than going to Silverstone. There's also, other races in Europe. I think Austria is one of the cheapest on the entire calendar. And probably, again, a better experience than if you go to Silverstone. So, yeah. And yeah, Crystal Racing like Hungary as well. But I think that also, what do you call it? I think, a lot of the people that go to the race in Hungary are people that don't live in the actual country. But yeah. Nicholas says, well, hey, the Texas Grand Prix later this year? No, absolutely no way. I can't fly. I'm scared of flying. So yeah. I mean, maybe in the future I'll come to America by I think, don't they still do by ferry, even though it takes like, was it a couple of weeks or whatever? Maybe I'll do that sometime in the future, but yeah, I'm never gonna fly to America. That's never gonna happen. But if I did come to America, then yeah, the only race I would be going to would be the Austin Grand Prix. But as well, I would probably try to attend a few IndyCar events because I think they're probably quite a bit cheaper, is my guess, compared to the Formula One events. William Hancock says $120 at US Grand Prix for a hat. Yeah, it's so stupid. But I think with just less than 10 minutes to go, take a ship, Chaz. Maybe in the future, we'll see. Yeah, with less than 10 minutes to go, let me just whiz through the teams quickly before we get on to qualifying. The Red Bull, they still got a competitive car. I still think they are very much in the fight for pole position, but they are on the back foot. There is no doubt about that. And I think they are probably more so on the back foot today than they were a week ago at Imola. If Max gets pole today, and it is not because Leclerc crashes or whatever, then he is truly a racing god. Because we saw last year, of course, he produced an amazing final sector to take pole. He needs probably to do that for the whole lap rather than just the final sector here in Monaco to take pole, because I think Red Bull are clearly second best to Ferrari, who are looking super strong. And surely Ferrari are the favourites for pole position. Charles Leclerc, of course, the home driver, the Monegasque driver. Surely he's going to get pole. There's nothing stopping him, I think, except himself. And with Ferrari, the only thing stopping them are themselves. As long as they execute a clean, consistent session, they should be on pole position unless they get very unlucky with a red flag or something like that. So Ferrari are my favourites for pole. Mercedes looking better. Might be able to get the top three on the grid, and if they can, that would be a brilliant result for them. Remember, Mercedes have not had a podium at all in 2024, which is just incredible to think about. And this is, with how their car is looking this weekend, this is their best chance yet to get a podium this weekend. So can Lewis Hamilton continue his fine form? We will see. McLaren not looking as quick this weekend, as I've said before. They're just not coping well with the medium and slow speed corners. And we know that in higher speed corners, that McLaren much better. Should still be competitive. Maybe a third row lockout is possible. Maybe even getting a car into fourth place. But I don't think McLaren have quite got enough of a car to fight for pole position. And the best we'll see from them is them being maybe the third best team here in Monaco. Aston Martin looking better, but really need to pin their hopes on Fernando Alonso, who is looking super quick this weekend. No surprise, he's always been very quick here. Maybe Alonso can drag that car onto the third row or even the second row of the grid. If he can, that would be incredible for the team. But Aston Martin looking better. Can they actually get into the fight with the front-running teams? Racing Bulls looking quick, but not as quick as Aston Martin. Yuki Tsunoda looks like he might be able to run in the top 10. We'll see with Daniel Ricciardo how he will do around probably his favourite racetrack in the world. Alpine, not as good as I would have expected them to be this weekend. Maybe they can get a car into Q2, but I'm not expecting anything spectacular. Alex Albon was very quick in practice too for Williams, so maybe Williams do have an outside chance of a surprise Q3 appearance, but most likely you'd imagine he'll be knocked out in Q2. Sauber, absolute shit. And Haas, not really much better this weekend. This track, not really suiting their car, but to be honest, they've never really had a great Monaco Grand Prix weekend, so it isn't really a surprise at their performance. And here is a quick reminder of my top 10 prediction for qualifying today in Monaco. I think it will be Charles Leclerc on pole by 0.2 of a second, with Max Verstappen second, Hamilton third, Sainz fourth, Alonso fifth, Norris sixth, Perez seventh, Piastri eighth, Russell ninth, and Yuki Tsunoda in P10. Will this come off, this prediction? Probably not, but we'll see what happens. And let me just get into a final couple things before we get into this session. A quick reminder again of the championship standings. Max Verstappen, 48 points clear of second place Charles Leclerc. And if Leclerc is to launch a bid at winning the World Championship in 2024, this is the weekend to start it. Pole position is absolutely critical for Leclerc and Ferrari. Perez in third, Norris in fourth, Sainz fifth, Piastri sixth, Russell in seventh, Hamilton up to eighth after last Grand Prix, Alonso in ninth, and Yuki Tsunoda in P10. And then in the constructors, Red Bull 56 points clear of Ferrari in second, with McLaren third, Mercedes-Benz in fourth, Aston Martin fifth, Racing Bull sixth, Haas seventh, Alpine eighth, Williams ninth, and Sauber in 10th. And let's just go through the stats of a couple teams going into this session. Red Bull, of course, took pole position at last year's Monaco Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, what a lap it was and what a final sector it was to take pole here in Monaco. And Red Bull do have a very good record here in Monaco, which does favour them over the Scuderia. They have taken pole in Monaco 7 times since 2010. Now, all of them haven't necessarily been because they were the quickest in qualifying. Obviously, 2012, Mark Webber for Red Bull started on pole, but he was not the quickest in qualifying. That was Michael Schumacher in the Mercedes. And then obviously in 2021, Leclerc was quickest in qualifying, but Max was the one that started on pole. But still, officially, their record of pole position in Monaco since 2010 is very, very good. And for Ferrari, their last pole in Monaco was in 2022 with Charles Leclerc. He dominated that qualifying session, and Ferrari did that weekend by locking out the front row. Leclerc has finished first in 2 of the last 3 qualifying sessions in Monaco. Of course, 2021 finished first, but then didn't start the race because of an issue. And Ferrari, even though they're looking quick this weekend, and as of late they've been, competitive, let's say, in Monaco, they've only taken pole twice in Monaco since 2010, which technically was 2017 and 2022, because obviously 2021 doesn't count because they didn't start the race on pole. Will Red Bull have that advantage today? Let's see. But Q1, guys, will be underway in a moment or so. Let me just get the timer synced up. And as you can see with the running order on the screen there, anyone below the dotted line at the end of Q1 is out of the session at a very hot, sunny Monaco. Yeah, so Ferrari haven't quite got their car ready yet. Leclerc in the car, but no tyres on the car as of yet. As well, the poll at the top of the chat, guys, still running, where I've asked you, who do you think will take pole position in Monaco? If you haven't voted yet, then make sure to do so. That poll will keep running until the start of Q3, which will be in about 45 minutes' time, as we've already got Russell and Alonso waiting at the exit of the pit lane. So keen to get on with it. And so is Lando Norris. And we've got a whole host of cars waiting to get out there. Of course, on the soft compound tyre. And of course, in Monaco, what we do always see is drivers repetitively doing lap after lap. As they, with the tyres here, the lap times do tend to get quicker and quicker. You don't tend to suffer as bad a degradation of tyres here in Monaco when going for laps. So we should see plenty of laps and lap times in this session. As we're just looking at Ricciardo and now Piastri. McLaren obviously got the Senna livery. I think it looks very good. And I'd say probably better than the last couple special liveries they've had which were also pretty good. As Lewis Hamilton, I think, is the first man on track, and the session qualifying in Monaco has begun. And I will sync up the timer, guys, at the 17-minute mark in about 45 seconds time. And yeah, Lewis Hamilton on track. Hamilton has had a lot of time as of late, some poor qualifying sessions here in Monaco. Last year, he qualified, I think, 6th. The year before, he was, I think, 8th or 9th. 2021, he was, I think, 7th or 8th. 2019, he got pole. 2018, he was 3rd. And then 2017, I think he ended up in 14th. So, it's not been a great place, this, for Lewis Hamilton. As Alonso just slowly coming out of the pit lane. And there you go. 17 minutes remain in Q1. And by the way, hello to Rooks in the chat. Good to see you, mate. Hopefully you're having a good day. As there is Leclerc in the garage looking pretty relaxed, as he has topped every session except practice 1. And here we look at, I think, Lewis Hamilton, yep, on the, and both him and Russell, the first 2 drivers to start laps in qualifying, as we look at the car way overhead from the helicopter on the TV broadcast. And Hamilton 21.1 for the first sector. The lap times to look out for in this session. The best time of the weekend so far is a 1:11.2. So I think that'll be probably about the best time we'll see in Q1. 1:11.2, maybe a 1:11.1. But I think, yeah, a 1:11.2 is the lap time to look out for in terms of who does a good lap and who doesn't. But for drivers, the reason they love this place is because, not just because of how challenging it is and how fun it is to drive, but this, if you get it right and you are super quick in Monaco, this is where you get to show how great of a driver you are. It is a real driver's circuit, which is why I think most of us still love this circuit, even if we do get boring races here. As Lewis Hamilton comes to the line to, well, he's set a lap time, but it's not very quick. And he's going for another run, is Hamilton. And Russell has done the same. He's done a warm-up lap, if you will. So Hamilton and Russell first and second. As Ricciardo now goes quickest. As, well, Ricciardo, I think, also has not done that quick of a lap. Well, no, he has. Lando Norris now goes up to P1. Now Tsunoda goes quickest. I'm very interested to see what Tsunoda does here, because he's been very impressive in qualifying in the last few months and even last year as well. As Max Verstappen is in the purple first sector out there. Let's see here, Lewis Hamilton, what his first lap time of session is. It's going to be slow. Yeah, it's a 1:12.9. He goes quickest, but that is a pretty slow lap time. That is, yeah, that's over 2 seconds away from, I think, what pole position will be. So that is not quick. And Russell does a 1:13.2 and goes third, as here comes Max Verstappen to Raskas. And into the final corner of Anthony Nogues. These corners he blew through last year and somehow didn't hit the wall. And to the line, he goes quickest on a 1:12.7, but still nowhere near as quick as what we've seen this weekend. So it's Verstappen, Hamilton, Tsunoda. Logan Sargent is in 4th place. But again, these lap times are not exactly quick. As Nico Hulkenberg now goes quickest and Kevin Magnussen has gone second. So a 1-2 for Haas as Piastri goes third. So if you're a Haas fan, get your phones out and snap the running order because you're not going to see that ever again. So Hulkenberg quickest, and then Magnussen in second, and Piastri up to third. Lance Stroll, I've just seen, has gone up to fifth place and has gone quicker, interestingly, than teammate Fernando Alonso. So Stroll fifth, and Alonso is sixth, as here comes Leclerc, who only goes sixth with his first run. A 1:12.8. The best time we've got so far, a 1:12.4, which again is still pretty slow. As Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon incident has been noted for impeding. Don't know who was impeding in that instance. Here comes Lando Norris, who goes third. So Norris up to third for McLaren. It's Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Norris, Piastri, Tsunoda now fifth, with Verstappen sixth, and then Stroll, Leclerc, Alonso, Hamilton, Sargent, Russell, and then Albon 13th. Ocon is 14th, with Valtteri Bottas 15th, and then in the drop zone we've got Perez, Gasly, Ricciardo, Zhou, and Carlos Sainz is last, but hasn't done a proper lap time yet, as Russell has done a purple middle sector and goes quickest by a 1/10.5. So George Russell quickest, and Lewis Hamilton improves but only goes third, as Max Verstappen on an improved lap as Carlos Sainz does his first proper time and goes second for Ferrari. As the best lap time now, a 1:12.2, as Perez only improves up to 17th place. As Max Verstappen now does a 1:12.0, goes 0.2 of a second quicker, and Verstappen is on top in Q1. So Verstappen, Russell, Sainz, Hulkenberg, Hamilton, Ocon now up to 6th place. Remember Ocon, third in qualifying last year and in the race. Watch out for Esteban Ocon. Been very good in the last couple races. As Hulkenberg goes up to third, and Oscar Piastri now goes quickest on a 1:11.8. So we're getting there. Not very far away now from some pretty quick times, as Lance Stroll goes third for Aston Martin. As Fernando Alonso now goes third. So Alonso, Stroll, Russell, Hulkenberg, Sainz, Magnussen now up to 8th place. As Leclerc was in the drop zone, goes out of it, but he only goes up to 9th place. So not a good start to the session so far for Leclerc. 2 average laps, as Ricciardo distracted quite horribly going up into the Casino Square section. We're seeing a replay of that. Don't know who it was who was blocking. Looked like a Sauber. So that's the Sainz Albon incident. And I'm not sure Albon will get a penalty for that. I think he'll get away with that because I think he got out of the way enough. But we've got another improvement. Lando Norris, but Norris only goes up to 8th place. So the top 10 is Piastri, Verstappen, Alonso, Stroll, Russell, Hulkenberg, Sainz, Norris, Magnussen, Leclerc. As Pierre Gasly improves up to 3rd place. Remember Gasly? Also can be very quick around here. So Gasly up to third, and Ocon has improved up to fifth. So the two Alpines getting on with it as George Russell goes up to second. So outside of the top 10, we've got Magnussen 11th, and then Leclerc, Hamilton, Albon, Tsunoda, and then in the drop zone, it is Ricciardo. No, not anymore, because Sergio Perez has gone out of the drop zone. Perez, though, only has gone 14th. What is Perez playing at? He has been awfully slow so far, as Albon now improves up to 14th. So Perez back in 15th and at risk. But everyone in the drop zone is now in the pit lane. And those drivers are Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Sargent, Bottas, and Zhou. Zero surprise about the 18th, 19th, and 20th, but I am very surprised that both Racing Bulls cars are in the drop zone. Ricciardo has been blocked a bit so far, but yeah, that is still very surprising. But we have got 6.5 minutes remaining in qualifying one. And Lewis Hamilton we're looking at on a lap here. He is definitely at risk of elimination if he doesn't get some good laps in these final few minutes, because he's only 13th. As Hamilton exits the final corner, and this should be a big improvement. And it is. He goes up to second place. So Lewis Hamilton up to second, as Carlos Sainz goes up to P4. Still waiting for Leclerc to do a proper good lap, as Leclerc now 13th. Leclerc is on an outlap though, and we've still got about 6 minutes to go, so plenty of time for the Monegasque, who is now exiting the final corner and beginning a new lap. As Leclerc flies through the Casino Square section. And first sector is not purple, but it is 0.07 of a second up on Piastri, as he's got a slow Red Bull ahead of him, who, he's going to block him, isn't he? No, gets out of the way, but that would have maybe distracted him a slight bit, may have cost him a 10th here, 10th there. As Leclerc down to the chicane, handles it brilliantly. And Leclerc slightly down on Piastri after the first two sectors, about a quarter of a 10th down. So this will probably put Leclerc first or second this lap. Maybe third, as Magnussen goes quickest. We had a yellow flag there briefly, but not anymore. Leclerc to the line. And Leclerc, brilliant final sector. He goes quickest on a 1:11.6, which is 0.4 of a second slower than the best time of the weekend so far that he did. As, Kevin Magnussen is now second. Nico Hulkenberg now third. So the two Haas's looking good for the moment. But anyone, really anyone, could be eliminated. It is that close here in Monaco, as Ricciardo has improved and gone up to 11th place. So Sergio Perez and the Red Bull in the drop zone surely is not going to get knocked out in Q1 here in Monaco 2 years running. As Alonso improves up to 9th, only 9th. As we're looking at Albon in the Williams trying to improve on 15th, as Lance Stroll improves and goes from 13th up to 2nd. Stroll looking good. As George Russell now goes quickest on a 1:11.4, 10th and a half up on Leclerc. As Albon flying through the swimming pool section now, and his pace is good enough to see him improve with this lap. Valtteri Bottas is in the drop zone, is improving, but not by enough to get through. As Max Verstappen up to third. And Alex Albon goes fifth as his teammate Logan Sargent is in P12. Let me just update that. Sargent in 12th. There's Yuki Tsunoda just in a purple middle sector. Tsunoda currently in 19th. Where does he go now? He goes up to P7. And that pushes his teammate Ricciardo into danger. As Ocon improves up to P10. As Gasly has a slow end to the lap and ends up 15th. But he's surely got time for one more run. As here is Sergio Perez. Can he improve on 18th? Lando Norris, by the way, on an outlap and in the drop zone. He better hope he gets his lap in as Perez improves. But again, he only goes 14th. Perez at serious risk here as Zhou Guan Yu 20th. With that lap, what a horrendous effort from him. Over a second away from 15th place is Zhou. Yes, Sauber having an absolute shit show as Leclerc has improved his lap time but stays in third. So with a minute and 20 seconds to go, in the drop zone is Gasly, Ricciardo, Norris, Bottas and Zhou. I think the two Saubers in 19th and 20th, I think they are out. They're way too slow. But can Norris, who's still on an outlap, can he get out of the drop zone? And like I said, he better hope he gets this lap in because you never know. If there's a red flag, he is absolutely fucked. As Alonso needs to improve on 13th. He's not improved his middle sector, but he's done a personal best first sector. What's the lap time? He stays 13th. He might be in really big trouble, Alonso, with that lap. As we're looking at, I think, Lando Norris, who's waiting for a gap to start his lap with 30 seconds left in Q1. Surely, if there's no red flags or yellow flags, Lando surely will make his way through to Q2, but you just never know. Sometimes here in Monaco. As Lando flies through the first sector where the McLaren isn't that quick. And Lando, well, he's a 10th up on Sargent in the first sector. The man he needs to be quicker than. As the checkered flag has now fallen. So these are the final laps of Q1. Who will get eliminated? As Sargent goes up to 14th. Alex Albon, his teammate, goes 4th. As Carlos Sainz improves up to 3rd. As Valtteri Bottas improves in the Sauber, but he stays 19th. Ricciardo goes up to the drop zone and goes up to 8th. And that's pushed Sergio Perez into the drop zone, but Perez is on another lap. As Ocon improves but stays 13th. Here comes Lando Norris. Surely will make it through to Q2. To the line he comes. And yes, Lando goes up to 9th. Not a great lap, but he gets through, surely. As Piastri goes 2nd. Alonso now in the drop zone, and Alonso's in the pit, so Alonso is out. And Perez finishes his lap. And Sergio Perez is out in 18th place. What a disaster for the Mexican. 2 years running out in Q1 in Monaco. Absolutely horrendous performance by him. But let me just finish up the rest of the order that we had there, as Piastri managed to go up to 2nd place. And yeah, Perez 18th. Let me just check the Formula 1 timing to see who actually finished where, because they've stopped showing it for some reason. on the broadcast. So let me just quickly have a look. So in the drop zone. So hold on. Let me just. So Pierre Gasly was in the drop zone and he improved at the end up to 8th place. And then it was Stroll, Norris, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Ocon, and then the drop zone. Right, so there you go. So guys, that's Q1 over and done with, and the drivers through to Q2 are George Russell, Oscar Piastri, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, Alex Albon, Max Verstappen, Pierre Gasly, Lance Stroll, Lando Norris, Daniel Ricciardo, Kevin Magnussen, Yuki Tsunoda, Nico Hulkenberg, Esteban Ocon. And what a surprising elimination for not just one but two drivers in Q1. Out in Q1, Fernando Alonso in 16th, out-qualified for a second race in a row by Lance Stroll. Out in 17th, Logan Sargent. In 18th, Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. And that's his race weekend over. And then Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu also out for Sauber. I did not expect Alonso and Perez to get knocked out in Q1. That is, yeah, that is incredible. But what that means is an opportunity. Maybe for your Alex Albons or your Yuki Tsunodas or Daniel Ricciardos to maybe end up finishing in 8th or 9th in qualifying. So we'll see who will take the opportunity. And this man on my screen, Lando Norris, didn't exactly get through to Q2 in flying colours. So we'll see what Q2 brings us. But yeah, no idea how Alonso was so slow there. I mean, Perez. I mean, we saw it with Perez. Every lap he did, even when he improved, he would only go up to like 14th place or 13th place. If you keep doing that, you're going to get eliminated. Simple. Just, what an absolute shit show from Perez. He's not helping his situation, put it that way. But Q2 will be underway in a couple minutes' time. Let me get the cutoff zone and colours ready. There you go. So anyone between 11th and 15th, of course, at the end of Q2 will be out in those positions. But, yeah, that was incredible how consistently slow Perez was. Never showed any pace at all. By the way, just want to say quickly, make sure to smash the like button if you haven't already. We're on 49 likes. Let's try and get up to like 60 or 70 if we can. By the end of qualifying, that'd be great if we could. So if you haven't hit the like button yet, make sure to do so. It does help the channel grow and helps me know that you guys actually enjoy the content. So, like I said, smash that like button. But, yeah. Let me see what you guys are saying quickly. Yeah, the Alonso result baffles me. Stroll is the GOAT. Alonso making Stroll look very good now, says Yanni. Mickey says Piastri might be a good call for pole now. I don't think we can read too much into what happened at the top of the timesheets in Q1. Because again, it was, what was it? Russell did, what was it, a 1:11... Was it a 1:11.4? Which is still a couple tenths slower than, you know, the best time of the weekend. So I don't think we can read too much into that. But I think in this session, we are going to see, I think we're going to see the best times of the weekend in this session. Definitely. I think we're going to see probably at best, say a 1:11.0. Maybe a 1:10.9, but I think 1:11.0 is probably what the best time of this session will be. So keep an eye out for anyone who gets close to that. drivers queued up at the exit of the pit lane. And there you go, session has begun. I'll sync up the timer in 55 seconds. But Q2 has begun, and I think the first car on track is Daniel Ricciardo, who has taken pole here in Monaco twice. And really should have took both victories, but one of them was taken from him by his team. As out comes Max Verstappen for the Red Bull. Red Bull, who have won every post-COVID Monaco Grand Prix. Of course, Max won in 2021 and 2023, and Perez, you wouldn't believe it, but 2 years ago, Sergio Perez was the king of Monaco, winning a very good Monaco Grand Prix in wet conditions, or wet, dry conditions, and was quicker than Max during the weekend as well. And then suddenly 2 years later, he can't even get into Q2. What a drop-off. As on the TV broadcast, they just put up there that Ayrton Senna still has the record for the most pole positions in Monaco. Can't remember the number. Is it 7 poles he has? I think in Monaco. I think it might be. I think Senna's record, wasn't it? 6 wins and 7 poles in Monaco. As here is Lando Norris in the Senna livery. As well, I've seen a couple of people mention on Twitter, and it is true. You know, celebrating Senna and all of that. You know, obviously 30 years since he died. You know, that's all great. But I would like it if people mentioned more, and I will mention it now. This weekend is about 5 years since the passing of another all-time great of Formula One, Niki Lauda. One of my favourite people in Formula One when he obviously was around. Told it as it is. And obviously his contributions to Formula One were absolutely incredible. And still, in my view, one of the top 5 greatest drivers in the history of Formula One. You know, once Max Verstappen's career finishes up, he probably won't be in that top 5 for me anymore. But I'd still say one of the top 5 greatest ever, Niki Lauda. What a driver and man he was. And you'd have to say, Mercedes-Benz have been a lot worse since, you know, he's been gone in terms of the atmosphere within the team. And they definitely do miss him. As Lando Norris does a 1:11.3, already quicker than the best time of Q1. So Lando Norris goes quickest. Max Verstappen goes even quicker and does a 1:11.1. That is a pretty good time here in Q2. As Leclerc goes a 1/10.5 slower on a 1:11.3. So Leclerc second. Tsunoda now second on a 1:11.2. What a lap by Yuki Tsunoda. Just like he did a couple last week in Imola. As here's a replay of Hülkenberg hitting the wall on the exit of turn 1. But it was just a clip. I think he'll get away with that. As Hülkenberg, I don't think he's got a great record here in Monaco. I'm not expecting anything special from him. As Carlos Sainz now quickest for Ferrari. I don't know what the lap time is. I'd love to know. But Carlos Sainz is now quickest on a 1:11.1, a couple hundredths of a second quicker than Max Verstappen. So it is Sainz, Verstappen, Tsunoda, Leclerc, Norris, and then Piastri 6th. Albon now 7th. And then Magnussen 8th. Hülkenberg 9th. As Lewis Hamilton, oh, that's a warm-up lap. I was going to say it only goes 12th, but yeah, warm-up lap. Daniel Ricciardo is 10th, with Pierre Gasly in 11th. And then Russell, Hamilton, Stroll, and Ocon have not done a proper lap time yet. So we'll wait to see what they do. as Russell now completes a warm-up lap. As Hamilton just coming to the entrance to the tunnel. But yeah, it's Yuki Tsunoda out of nowhere, putting it right up there. And Esteban Ocon now puts it right up there. A 1:11.2. And Esteban Ocon goes 4th quickest. What a lap by Esteban, who's always been very quick here. Lance Stroll goes up to 8th. Aston Martin have got to get into Q3 with Stroll. Because if they don't, then Racing Bulls are going to have a good weekend capitalising on their misery. Of course, Racing Bulls only 24 points behind them in the championship as Lewis Hamilton goes 8th and 8th only. As here comes Max Verstappen. How much quicker can he go? He does a 1:11.0. A 10.5 up on Carlos Sainz, and that is the best lap time of the weekend. What a lap by Max, and surely that is good enough to see him through to Q3. As Leclerc improves on his lap, but only stays in 5th. As Russell goes up to 9th. So in the drop zone, Albon, Magnussen, Hülkenberg, Ricciardo, and Gasly, as here's a replay of Ocon being blocked. I don't know if that was on his quick lap. I'm guessing it wasn't, because if it was, then wow, he could go a lot quicker. As here is Hülkenberg on a better lap. Albon also out there on a better lap. Hülkenberg exits the final corner. What can he do? He stays in 13th. To be honest, I'm not expecting Haas to get any of their cars into Q3. So if they were to end up where they are now, 12th and 13th, I think that would be pretty good. Given this is always going to be one of their weakest circuits. As here comes Alex Albon. Stays in 11th, but is only half a tenth away from making Q3, which would be a great effort in a car that is still quite overweight. Not as overweight as the Alpine, but well, actually might be as overweight as the Alpines. Alpine have done some good work cutting the weight. As Pierre Gasly we're looking at now in 15th, has improved his first sector. And imagine if Alpine are still a bit overweight, imagine if they were on the same weight as a lot of the front-running teams. Ocon might be quickest right now. As Pierre Gasly exits the chicane. Now into Tabac. And this is a good lap. This will get him in the top 10 if he keeps this up. As Gasly through Raskas. Gasly's had a poor season in terms of results, but I don't think it's been as bad as people think it has been. I think it's really been the car that's been the thing hurting him, as Pierre Gasly goes up to 6th place. So both Alpines in 4th and 6th. Who would have thought that after the start of their season? So in the drop zone, Stroll, Albon, Magnussen, Hülkenberg, and Ricciardo. And if Alpine do get both cars into Q3, which I would be surprised if they did that, but if they do, then it does show that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that if they can just keep bringing some upgrades, that they will get back to the levels of last season where they were, well, fighting with Aston Martin and were right there as an upper midfield team. It's not impossible. We've seen with, look at McLaren last season. One big upgrade and they become a front-running team. As Lewis Hamilton has improved his first sector, Hamilton surely can do better than P9. As he now comes into the tunnel. As Leclerc is on an outlap as well. As Hamilton looking good going through the chicane. No issues with the lap so far. And purple middle sector. So this is a very good lap for Hamilton. This will probably put him 2nd or 3rd once he comes to the line. As Carlos Sainz improves his lap time, stays in second, improves by about 1/10 of a second. Here comes Hamilton, who goes third. So Lewis Hamilton into the top 3 where he's been all weekend. As we've still got 4 minutes and 40 seconds to go in the second part of qualifying. Here is Charles Leclerc. As Oscar Piastri, oh my God, what a lap. Oscar Piastri has gone quickest on a 1 minute 10.7. Where did that come from? He's tapped into some of that Australian speed we've seen here before from Ricciardo and Mark Webber, and he has done an absolute stonker of a lap. I thought that was going to be the pole position time. He's already done it, if that's, if that is to be the case. What a lap. 3/10 quicker, 3.5 quicker than Max. He says on the radio, I've hit the wall. Wow, what a lap time that is. That is definitely good enough to see him into Q3. But where does that feature him into the battle for pole? Because that is a stunning lap time that Leclerc, on this lap he's doing, can't get anywhere near. As Leclerc comes to the line, well, can't get anywhere near, goes 0.07 of a second slower and up to second. But what a lap by Oscar Piastri. That is going to get some people talking, because McLaren have not looked that quick this weekend. So for Oscar to just go out and bang a lap like that in, that is going to get people thinking. As Lando Norris, after the first 2 sectors of his new lap, is about 1/10 down on his teammate. So McLaren showing some more speed here. But Piastri today seems to have the upper hand on Lando. Not for much longer, because Lando Norris, with a brilliant final sector, goes 1/4 of a tenth quicker than Piastri, and it is a McLaren 1-2, both on a 1 minute 10.7. And I think McLaren, they've announced themselves as definitely able to get pole position today, which is all the better for us. As here is Alex Albon, who goes 8th. Alex Albon into the top 10. So the drop zone is now Gasly, Stroll, Magnussen, Hülkenberg, and Ricciardo. As Piastri is back in the pits, I don't think we'll see him again until Q3. Gasly has done a pretty slow first sector, so he's probably just doing a warm-up lap, as we've got 2 minutes to go now in Q2. But everyone other than Piastri is on the track. We've got Russell, Hamilton, Tsunoda, and Ricciardo on an outlap. As we're now looking at Lance Stroll in 12th place, who's got at least 0.3 of a second to make up just to get into the top 10. And well, the first sector is good enough, 1/10.5 up. As he comes down to the hairpin. And if Stroll ends up getting a good result today, that will be even more disappointing for Fernando Alonso. Knowing maybe what was possible. As both McLarens now in the pit lane. Stroll through to back. And, middle sector's dropped off quite a bit. As Hülkenberg goes up to 12th, I think Stroll is not going to get into the top 10 with this lap. And this is probably his final lap of Q2 as he now comes to the line. Lance Stroll! And he misses out with an awful final sector. And Lance Stroll, he's backed off as well. Lance Stroll is out of qualifying and probably is going to end up in 14th or 15th place. What an absolute horror show. For Aston Martin, as Max Verstappen goes second on a 1:10.7. And only, or less than 1/10 separating the top 4 now. Please be that way in Q3. As Lewis Hamilton, bit of a slide on the exit of the swimming pool section, and he's not improved his middle sector time. Currently sat in P7 is Ricciardo, not improving enough. Gasly definitely improving enough in 11th as Lewis Hamilton goes up to 6th. Checkered flag now falls. These are your final laps of Q2. Daniel Ricciardo, only 13th. Not good enough, I'm afraid. As Pierre Gasly goes 5th. 5th for Gasly. And that is surely him into Q3. What a lap. And now here is Tsunoda in P10. And surely Tsunoda will make the top 10. He does, and he goes up to 9th. And I think, yep, Kevin Magnussen now in the pits. So Alex Albon has also made Q3. What an effort by Williams and Alex Albon. And also what an effort by Pierre Gasly to go 5th quickest in the Alpine and out-qualify his teammates. So Q2 is done with. Here are the drivers on their way to the almighty shootout here in Monaco. Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, Yuki Tsunoda, Alexander Albon. And knocked out in Q2, Esteban Ocon, Nico Hulkenberg, Daniel Ricciardo, Lance Stroll, and Kevin Magnussen. And oh boy, I cannot wait for this. I cannot wait to see what we're about to get in Q3. If it's as good as last season, then I'll take it. Where we had, in the last couple minutes of the session, I think 4 different teams on provisional pole. And make sure, guys, keep voting in that poll. Let me know, who do you think is going to take pole position? Will it be Charles Leclerc? Will it be Lando Norris? Will it be Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton? Or will it be Oscar Piastri on pole? But yeah, we await these final few minutes of qualifying, as of course Q3 will be a 12-minute long session. And I'll sync up the timer at the 11-minute mark, and then we'll get into these final laps. As I've just seen, by the way, the football score, that is incredible what's going on there. But this is the true main event of this sporting Saturday. Nicholas's hometown boy Charles Leclerc gets pole. Let me see if I can find some other comments here in the chat before we get into things. KH, what happened to Mercedes? Not quite sure what's happened so far with Mercedes. Yeah, Lewis, he's produced a couple good laps in qualifying so far, but yeah, the end there in Q2, 6th and 7th, that's not where they want to be. That's where they've been so often this season. So you've got to think there is more, surely, that Mercedes have got. But maybe there isn't. That is possible. As Pierre Gasly, I've just seen on the radio, celebrating that he was able to get into Q3. And yeah, KH saying, be awesome if Piastri got pole. Remember, Oscar Piastri has never had a proper pole position. He did have a pole position for the sprint race in Qatar, which was back in October, and that sprint race he actually won for McLaren. And of course, hasn't got an F1 win. But if he takes pole today, then chances are that his first win will be tomorrow. That is how vital pole is in Monaco. If you look at the last few years, obviously last year, Max won from pole. 2022, Perez won from third. 2021, Max won from pole. 2019, Lewis won from pole. Ricciardo won from pole in 2018. 2017 and 2016 and 2015 were all not won from pole for various different reasons. But then, what was it? 2014, 2013, 2012, 2011, 2010, 2009. All of those races were won by the man on pole position. This is the place where you want to be on pole because it is 90% of the job. And then at that point, you just got to make sure you deliver with the strategy, pit stops, and get the car to the finish. Really. As we await the beginning of the shootout of shootouts in Formula One. And this, as I said earlier, this is where the drivers make their money, around tracks like this. And this is where they show why they are so good. Before, as Pierre Gasly comes out of his garage, before we get into things, again, if you haven't hit the like button yet, make sure to do so. We're on 54 likes. Let's try and get up to 70 plus likes if we can by the end of the stream. That'd be great if we could do that. Of course, remember, I will be sticking around for a few minutes after qualifying to react with you guys to the session. And remember, of course, I will not be streaming tomorrow. So this is, it in terms of the content I'm doing this weekend. But let's be honest, this is the main event of the weekend. As there is Oscar Piastri in the McLaren garage. And yes, since, 2010, we've had 3 Australians. Well, not 3 Australians. We've had 3 pole positions taken by an Australian. And 3 race wins taken by an Australian here in Monaco. Will Oscar tap into that type of form? As Pierre Gasly will be the first man on track in Q3 as the session has begun. As Gasly very slowly pulls out of the pit lane. As actually the first car on track is a Ferrari of, looks like Carlos Sainz to me. Might be wrong. No, it is Carlos Sainz. And Carlos did finish second here for Ferrari in 2021 and obviously second in 2022. But he's never really been that quick in qualifying around this track. Definitely not as quick as his teammate. As there you go. 11 minutes remain in Q3. And not just Q3, but in qualifying. Let's find out who is going to take the most important pole position of the year. As we're looking back at the visor of George Russell on the broadcast, Russell has never qualified in the top 5 here in Monaco. As here comes Carlos Sainz to start his first run, and pole position is probably going to be, if they were doing a 1 minute 10.7 in Q2, it's probably going to be at best a 1:10.5, maybe a 1:10.4 in this part of qualifying. Sainz. Has he backed off? I thought he backed off there. He may have backed off. Not sure. But yeah, those are lap times to look out for. He's backed off. He's just letting the Williams behind through. As we're looking at Lewis Hamilton here. As Hamilton just coming into the tunnel. And Hamilton so far a purple first sector compared to, I think, his teammate Gasly. As Hamilton through to back and middle sector. Not sure how good it is yet. But he's going quicker than his teammate. That is for sure. As Alex Albon is the first to set a lap time. What does Lewis Hamilton do? It's a 1:10.9, which is not quite good enough if he's going to be fighting for pole. So it's Hamilton and then Albon. Here comes Leclerc with a purple middle sector. Leclerc needs this first lap to be good. As he comes through the final corner now, and we'll get a slight slipstream from the car ahead. Leclerc to the line. It's a 1:10.4. 1 minute 10.418. That is a great start. With a blistering final sector as Piastri goes second, only a quarter of a tenth slower than Leclerc. Norris goes third, half a second down on his teammate. So a poor lap there. As here comes Carlos Sainz. Can he somehow get onto the front row? Sainz to the line. Only third. As we're now looking at Russell, who clearly backed off on his previous lap as Tsunoda has gone up to 6th ahead of Albon. As Gasly now goes 6th. As Max Verstappen does a purple first sector. He is probably the only man who can stop Leclerc from fulfilling his dreams. And as usual, Max is the one to crush people's dreams. As Russell goes 4th. Exactly half a second down on Leclerc. As Max, half a tenth off Leclerc after the first 2 sectors. He needs to have a perfect final sector to get onto provisional pole position into the final corner. It's a decent run. What's the lap time? It is only third, a tenth and a half down on Leclerc. Max Verstappen is third, but there is still one more run to go and still plenty of time for Max Verstappen to crush the home crowd's dreams of a Leclerc and Ferrari pole position. And as it stands, as Alex Albon is already back out on track on an outlap, as it stands, your top 10 with one run to go is Leclerc on provisional pole, Piastri second, Verstappen third, Sainz fourth, Russell 5th, Norris 6th, Hamilton 7th, Gasly 8th, Tsunoda 9th, and Albon 10th. Great result so far for Gasly. That's really 8th is the result he needs to aim for. Leclerc, what a lap. Also Piastri, what a lap by him. And you've got to think that for this final run, as Alex Albon flying through the Casino Square section on what is probably his final run of qualifying, half a tenth down on Leclerc after the first sector. The only drivers I think that can get pole here are Leclerc, Piastri, Verstappen, and probably Lando Norris, because Piastri's up there and we know Lando can, at least match him. One thing, though, I forgot to do which I'll just quickly do now before we get into the final run, is finish up the poll in the chat, where I asked you guys who will take pole position in Monaco, almost 500 votes, and you guys have gone with Charles Leclerc with 49% of the vote. Max Verstappen second, 25%, Lewis Hamilton third, 17%, and Lando Norris fourth on 7%. I agree. I think Leclerc will take pole, but it is going to be so close. As Alex Albon goes 7th, ahead of Lewis Hamilton. What a lap by Albon, and if he is to end up there, that is an incredible lap time. Only half a second away from provisional pole. But yeah, for me, this pole position, it's between Leclerc, Piastri, Verstappen, and Norris. Who of those four will be the king of Monaco? As Max Verstappen is already back out on track with 4 minutes to go in qualifying. As we're looking at the Ferrari of Sainz, I think it is, who's just coming through the hairpin on his outlap. And here comes Leclerc out of the garage. One more run to try and seal pole position. And you would think for Leclerc, if he can get another couple tenths of a second out of that car, then I think that might be enough. And then if anyone else gets more out of their car and ends up on pole, fair play. But I think another couple tenths of a second for Leclerc, and I think that will be enough to secure pole. Unless someone does an absolute madness. Lando Norris, by the way, still in the pits. Now finally being released. So both McLarens are going to be the two last on track. Meaning they will have the most amount of grip available to them. As Carlos Sainz starts a lap. But I don't think this is going to be a flying lap. I think this is going to be a warm-up lap for Carlos Sainz. As he did earlier. And yeah, Sainz has backed off in the first sector. So he is going for a warm-up lap. As here is Lewis Hamilton. Looks like he's not. Looks like he's going for the full thing. And he's up on Leclerc in the first sector by 0.06 of a second. But it's the middle and final sector that really decides it here in Monaco. As Hamilton into the tunnel. As Russell has done a purple first sector for Mercedes. Can we see a surprise from them? 5th and 8th Mercedes are at the moment. As Hamilton through to back. And he's a couple tenths down on Leclerc after the first two sectors. This is going to be, I think, 4th at best for Hamilton. As he comes through the final corner, Lewis Hamilton. Where will he end up in Monaco? It is 4th. 0.2 of a second away from pole. And I don't think Mercedes can get pole. Russell is going quicker, though. Only a 10th down on Leclerc after the first two sectors. Where does he go? 3rd. A 10th away from pole and ahead of Max Verstappen. Here is Charles Leclerc. Is he improving? Yes, he is, but it's only by half a tenth. As Piastri also improving, so is Carlos Sainz as Leclerc through Rascasse. Piastri has not improved his middle sector as Tsunoda goes 7th. Here comes Leclerc to the line. He goes a 10.5 quicker and it's a 1 minute 10.2 and I think that might just be enough for the Monegasque. Here comes Piastri. Stays in second place, a 10.5 down. Will that be enough for the front row? We'll find out as Verstappen has not improved his first sector and he's backed off. Max has backed off as Carlos Sainz goes third. Max is in trouble as Lando Norris goes up to fourth. The checkered flag has fallen. And Max Verstappen, I don't know what happened. We saw on the radio him say something, but I didn't quite catch what it said. But Max Verstappen is going to start the Monaco Grand Prix in 6th place. And for the second time in the last 3 Monaco Grand Prix, it will be a Monegasque driver on pole position. As here is Pierre Gasly coming to the end of his lap. Let's just see where Gasly ends up. What a session he's had as he's slipping and sliding all over the place. And Pierre Gasly ends up in 10th place. Yeah. So for the second time in the last 3 Grand Prix are in Monaco, it is Charles Leclerc on pole. And with Max in 6th and Leclerc second in the championship, this is the chance to begin a championship challenge towards Max Verstappen in 2024. Leclerc on pole, Piastri second, Carlos Sainz third, Lando Norris 4th, Russell 5th, Verstappen 6th. He's in a Mercedes sandwich tomorrow. Verstappen 6th, Hamilton in 7th, Tsunoda 8th, Albon 9th, Gasly 10th. Here's a replay of what Verstappen did on his run. And he went wide. He said he hit the wall, but it didn't look like he hit the wall. But he must have just grazed it. And then immediately backed off, which I think was a mistake. Yeah, I think he hit the wall, but I think he should have kept going with that lap. I don't think he should have backed off as early as he did. So that's your top 10. And then Ocon 11th, Hulkenberg 12th, Ricciardo 13th, Stroll 14th, Magnussen 15th, Alonso 16th, Sargent 17th, Perez 18th, Bottas 19th, and Zhou Guanyu in 20th. A fantastic grid we have for tomorrow, even though tomorrow we're not going to see any overtaking. Should be interesting to see where Verstappen finishes and whether Max does finish in 6th. And if he does and Leclerc wins, then that's at least a 16-point gain in the championship. So, yeah. This has to be for Ferrari, the weekend where they get their championship bid underway. So there you go. Astro saying, sure you don't want to do a race watch along, Chaz? No, I'm not going to. Because even though, it's a great grid, we're not going to get any overtaking tomorrow. So, yeah. But, if there was an actual proper chance of rain, I would. But, yeah, there isn't going to be. And like I said, today is the main event of the Monaco Grand Prix weekend. And most likely tomorrow's result will be pretty much what today's result will be. Anyway, that's qualifying done with. Let me just ask you guys, who do you think is driver of the day for qualifying in Monaco? Let me just quickly get this up. And your options for driver of the day will be Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, who for the second race running has outqualified Lando Norris. Even though, he didn't start ahead of Norris in Imola, he did outqualify him. So Leclerc, Piastri, and then the other two options, I am going to go Alexander Albon and Pierre Gasly, because I think they deserve to be in the mix. And for driver of the day, I would go... Let me just look at the gaps before I decide driver of the day. Leclerc, I think, was it a 10th or a tenth and a half. It was in the end. He was on pole by. Let me just have a look. They're not showing it here. Oh no, they are. Yeah, Leclerc on pole by a tenth and a half. Sainz a quarter of a second away. Max, because he didn't do a final lap, ended up a third of a second away, and yeah, sixth. Um, I think, yeah, I think I'm gonna for driver of the day. I think I am gonna have to go for Leclerc. Um, because in a straight fight with him and Piastri, Leclerc was the winner, and I don't think it was necessarily because of the car. I think it was, also Leclerc produced a fantastic final lap. Oscar again, not the greatest final lap. He did not improve his middle sector. So, I mean, it might not have made a difference. He may have ended up second anyway, but, I think Leclerc just about takes drive of the day. But shout out Oscar Piastri, what a drive. And he is showing at the moment, and continues to show, that he is one of the top few drivers in Formula One right now. There is no doubt about it. And you could very well say that he is a future world champion, is Piastri. Yeah, for the next, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, we'll go through your comments, see what you guys have to say. And yeah, let me know in the poll who you think driver of the day is. Ferrari can mess things on pit stops. Not as much as they used to. So I don't think it's going to be as easy for, Oscar to have a chance. I mean, when it comes to tomorrow, let me just look at the race pace data from Thursday. If there is any. And no, can't see any. But if the race pace ends up being as it is usually, then yeah, McLaren might be a tenth or two quicker than Ferrari in the race. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to the pit stop and when they decide to pit and whether the pit stop itself goes to plan. If Ferrari get when they pit, if they get that right and the pit stop goes well, then it doesn't matter if Oscar goes longer into the race and has fresher tires or whatever, because track position is everything in Monaco. It doesn't matter about as long as you don't pick a strategy that literally loses you positions. It doesn't matter if you have fresher tires or whatever. It does not matter. Astro says, cheers, Chazzo. Sure hope Oscar, future champ. Please, please, please. Looney Classic says, race pace only comes into account if you're trying an undercut. Not. No, I'd say the opposite, actually. I think it only comes into account if you're doing an overcut, because if you do an overcut, then you're having to rely on not just the pace of the car, but the ability of the car to look after its tires whilst you're, pushing. So, yeah, if you're trying to go longer into the race than your rival, then yeah, you need to hope you've got a good race pace. So maybe if McLaren have got, a bit of a gap behind them, maybe maybe McLaren will decide to go a couple extra laps. We'll see, but Leclerc should win tomorrow. The only positions I can see changing is Verstappen. because Red Bull still have in clear air the best race pace of any team. So I think with Verstappen, I think they will definitely go a lot longer into the race than other people. I wouldn't be surprised if Max starts the race on the hard compound tyre. So that he's got, a durable tyre to go as long into the race as he can. So that when he's in clear air, he can, bang the laps in to maybe jump past a couple cars. But of course, Mercedes, he's in a Mercedes sandwich. If he is stuck behind the Mercedes of Russell for too long, then he might lose touch with the top four. So we'll see what happens with that. And the thing with Monaco, when it comes to when you pit, all it matters in Monaco, it doesn't matter about an undercut or an overcut. All that matters is, whether you are or your rival is in traffic. So, for example, if your rival pits before you and comes out in traffic, then the best thing to do is an overcut, because you can set laps in clear air and probably go a couple seconds a lap quicker whilst they're, struggling in traffic. But, if you're trying to do an undercut, for example, if you pit first and you have loads of clear air, then an undercut will work. But it's all about building a gap. As we hear a lot during a Grand Prix, you need to make sure you've got a good gap to drop into to be able to do those things. And, I mean, Mercedes, what do you call it? At Imola, Mercedes were, what? Half a second a lap off the front running pace? I think they were, on average over the course of the race. So, if that continues, then, Verstappen will be, in quite a bit of trouble. But, yeah, Leclerc and Piastri, if they're half a second quicker than Russell and everyone that is behind Russell, then they'll probably have to wait until what? They'll probably have to wait until like lap 37, lap 38 to pit and come out ahead of them. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But like I said, I think Leclerc gets the win tomorrow. I think unless something like really unlucky or crazy happens, I think Leclerc wins the race tomorrow. Any news on what happened to Alonso yet? Very odd seeing him knocked out in Q1. Haven't seen anything. Yeah, I haven't seen anything in regards to to why. I mean, Stroll ended up 14th, so maybe Aston Martin just didn't have the pace today. I mean, Alonso could have been quicker today. There's no doubt about it. But whether Alonso would have got through to Q3, who knows? But right, I'm going to read out probably a few more comments, and then I'll come to the end of the stream here. Thank you guys for coming along, by the way. It's been great to have you. Looney Classic says if Max starts on the hard, he'll get jumped by Lewis, and from there it will not matter how long he goes because he will eventually finish behind both Max or even Yuki because they are fast enough. I don't see Max losing position to Lewis at the start unless Max has like a properly poor start. It's pretty hard to lose a position at the start here in Monaco because, especially if you're in the front, pack of the grid, because the run to turn one is so short and these cars are so big, so they could probably get away with starting on the hard tire. And plus, I think Max is on the he's on the, is it the inside line? Yeah, I think he's on the inside line for the start. So, if you're on the inside for the start, then, you're most likely going to at least hold position and more likely even to gain a position. Will F1 says McLaren 1-2 and coming tomorrow. No chance of that. No chance. Alonso had traffic apparently, but slower than FP2 is certainly not a good thing. Yeah, in practice 2, Alonso did a 111.6, and in Q1 did a 112.0. So yeah. Let's see if I can find a couple more comments before we come off. Mickey says, I see almost all drivers trying to go long in this race. A lot of the reason why drivers do tend to go long with their first stint is purely for the hope that the people that pit sooner than them come out in traffic and then lose time. So everyone's trying to out long each other, if that makes any sense. Astro says, I kind of feel a bit bad for Leclerc if Oscar beats him off the line and wins tomorrow, but only a bit. Of course, yeah, the start he needs to get right, but like I said, he's got the inside line, so he should be okay unless he has an absolute disaster off the line. But we will see, and it should be a pretty dire Monaco Grand Prix, let's be honest, in terms of entertainment. It's all going to be all about the pit stops and the strategy, and then once we get that out of the way, it's going to be just a procession to the finish. Let's be honest, that's what Monaco is with these cars, and it's a dry race tomorrow, so no chance of any exciting things thrown in there, thrown into the mix to get things going. So yeah, unfortunate, but hey, that's the way it is. So yeah, I will not be doing a race watch along tomorrow, so I hope you guys enjoy the Monaco Grand Prix. Of course, I will be watching it. Hopefully it's better than what I've said it will be, but I think I'm going to be bang on. But I will most likely, again, not confirmed, but most likely be back in 2 weeks' time for qualifying in Canada, which I am looking forward to. Dry or wet, I think that should be a very close session as well. I'm expecting Ferrari to be very strong in Canada, and should be at least a good fight between Ferrari and Red Bull in Montreal. So yeah, cannot wait for that. Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy the Monaco Grand Prix. And yeah, I'll probably see you guys in a couple weeks from now. Let me just finish up the poll in the chat, where I asked you guys, who do you think is driver of the day for qualifying in Monaco? 36 votes and 58% of you went for Leclerc. 25% went for Piastri, 13% Albon, and 2% Pierre Gasly. Thank you guys for voting. But yeah, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, because I will be doing obviously more live streams during the season when we get some exciting qualifyings and looks to be exciting races. So don't worry, those are coming. And of course, recorded videos coming as well. So don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Make sure to smash a like button to help the channel grow. Does help the channel in the algorithm if you smash a like button. So make sure to do that as well before you go if you haven't already. And make sure as well to join my Discord server. Link in the description and probably in the chat as well. That is a great place for notifications for my videos and streams whenever I go live. And also any channel updates if you're wanting to know where I'm at or what I'm doing, then yeah, you've got that as well if you want to know what I'm doing with the channel. But guys, that's been me for this Monaco Grand Prix weekend. Hopefully you join the Monaco Grand Prix race tomorrow, and until probably qualifying day in Montreal in 2 weeks' time, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.